In this video, I'll be showing you how to multiply numbers and numbers that have decimals right next to them. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and let's begin solving these problems. Now, know that there's an invisible decimal right next to these numbers. These are whole numbers, numbers before the decimal. So 10, 20, and our second problem, 100 and 55. And we'll start with the first problem, 10 times 20. And the way I approach this, or how I will start solving this problem, is by looking at the first bottom to the right number, which is 0, and I look up to the right number, which is 0 as well, and I multiply those two numbers. So 0 times 0 is 0. And then I work towards the left. So I look at the bottom right number, which is 0 again. And then I look at the next digit to the left of the top right number, which is 0. And that would be 1. So 0 times 1 is 0. And then I move on to the next digit, which is 2. And I do the same thing. I look at the top right corner, which is 0, and then work towards the left, which is 1 next to the 0. And so before I multiply 2 times 0, I have to add a 0 to the next row. These are going to be rows. They're going to be rows. So we're done with the first row. Now we're looking at the second row. And the reason why there's a 0, or you add a 0, is because you want to make sure that the decimal point is in the right place, so the answer has the right value. And I'll show you what that means after I solve all this. So 2 times 0 is 0, and 2 times 1 is 2. And then you add these two rows. So 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, and then 2. Now, your answer is 200. And there we go. Now, there isn't any number. I mean, there is a 0 after, but we didn't touch those. So we leave that alone. Oops, let me erase this line. And the answer is 0. So there is a decimal here, and it did not move. It stays there. So the answer is 200. Now let's look at the next problem. 100 times 55. And we'll do the same. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 1 is 5. And then we add the 0. And 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 1 is 5. And then we add our adding symbol. And then solve. 0 plus 0, 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 0 is 5. And then 5. So we have 5,500 as the answer. Oops. 5,500. And again, there is a decimal here, and it did not move because there was no digits after the decimal that we used. And that's going to make more sense in these next problems. So you notice there is a digit after the decimal. So 10.2 times 5, there is an invisible 0 there. So let's go ahead and solve this. So 0 times 2 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. And then we add that 0. And then 5 times 2 is 10. So I'll write the 0 here, and then I'll add the 1 up here. And then 5 times 0 is 0, but then we add that 1, so this becomes 1. And then 5 times 1 is 5. And we are adding. So let's solve these. So we have 5,100. Now, we do have 2 digits after the decimal. So we have 1 digit, which is the 2, and then we have 1 digit that we used, which is 0. And when you're multiplying, you count how many digits there are, and that's how many times you'll move the decimal here, this decimal, to the left. So we have 2, so we need to move this decimal twice to the left. There. So the answer is 51 is your answer. Easy. And I'll erase this to make some space. And I need to move this up. Let me just move this up here and write 51 as the answer. There. With the decimal there before. Next problem, 20.1 times 5.2. So this is going to be 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 2 is 4. We add the 0. Now 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 0 is 0. And 5 times 2 is 10. And then we add 2, 5, 4, 0, 1. And we have 2 digits after the decimal. So we have 1 and then digit 2. And we move twice to the left, 1 and 2. So the answer is 104.52. And let me move the problem up so we have space. So the answer is 104.52. That is your answer. Easy. Next problem. 100 times 555 or 555. So 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 1 is 5. We add this 0. Same thing. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 1 is 5. And then we add 2 zeros. This is the next row, or the third row. 5 times 0 is 0. Yeah, so anytime you go to a new row, you add another 0. So the second row will be 1 0. The third row will be 2 zeros that you add. If there was a fourth row, you add 3 zeros and then start from there. So in this case, or this problem, we are on the third row, and we have 2 zeros to start, and then you go on from there. So 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 0 is 0, and then 5 times 1 is 5. And then we add all these. So 0, 0, 5, 5, and 5. So the answer is, and we did not use any digits after the decimal. The answer is 55,500. And I'll move this up for space. 55,500 is your answer. There. All right, next problem. 207 times 55. And there are no digits that we are working with after the decimal. So 5 times 7 is 35. I'll have to write a little smaller for space. So I'll write 35, the 3 on top, and then the 5 below here. So 5 times 0 is 0, but then we add 3. So now we write down the 3 down here. 5 times 2 is 10. Second row, we add that 0. So 5 times 7 is 35. I'll write the 3 up there. And I'll write the 5 down here. And then 5 times 0 is 0. And we add that 3. So I'll write 3 here. And then 5 times 2 is 10. And then we add. So 5. This will be 8. 3 plus 5 is 8. 0 plus 3 is 3. Then 1, and then 1. And we don't need to move that decimal, so the answer is 11,385. Easy. Last two problems. 10 times 22. So 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. Then we add that 0 to the second row. And then 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. And then we add. And the answer is 220. And I'll write that 0 better. Last problem. 100 times 25. All right, I'll need to write a little bit smaller here. Let me just raise that up there. So 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 1 is 5. Then we add this 0 to the second row. And then we start again. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. Then we add these up. And we did not use any digits after the decimal. So the answer is 2,500.